Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at managing graphs on the LabQuest. Here you can see I've taken some data. This is from a motion detector that I've attached to the LabQuest, and I've gone ahead and recorded some data. Hopefully you know how to do that by now. What we're going to look at are some of the options you have in playing around with the graphs of these. Let's start with the graph menu. If you select this, this brings up a bunch of options. Let's look at the top one, Graph Options. If we click this, this brings up a screen where it allows us to choose how we want to customize that graphing screen. Up at the top, you can see you have three options: auto scale from 0, or manual. Auto scale will tell the LabQuest to do most of the dirty work by itself. This is probably where you want to stay. However, if you want to look at a particular part of the graph, you can also set this to manual, which allows you to use all these options to pick what's going on. So let's look at the x-axis column. This is controlling what's going on the x-axis. And here you can tell it what variable, what you want to look at on the x-axis. And you can see all your options in this drop-down menu. Almost always, though, you're going to want time on the x-axis. From here, you can control what part of the x-axis you're looking at. So this tells us that on the very left of our graph is going to be 0 on the x-axis. All the way to the right will be 5. So if I wanted the x-axis to go from 0 to 10, I could just change this number to 10. But 5 is just fine, so we'll leave it there. Other options you have in here, probably shouldn't have closed that down, eh? We can do the same for the y-axis. We can control what's going to be on it for both graph 1 and graph 2, because if you look back, we have two graphs on there. Point protectors are the little marks around the data points. Most of the time you're going to want to leave that on, and connect points will automatically find a line of best fit. Both of those options are best left just as they are. Let's look at some of the other options in the graph menu. Below this we see Show Graph. And if we click this, it gives us the option of looking at graph 1, graph 2, or all of the graphs. So if we only want, say, the position versus time data, the top graph is graph 1. So we select that and it'll just give us the one graph. And just the same way, if you want graph 2, you can look at that, or if you want them all on there at the same time, that's possible as well by selecting all graphs. This one I suggest you use sparingly, but it's there just in case. If you have a set of data that you want to save, use the Store Run feature, and that will store that data and then allow you to take other data and still go back and forth. Once you have some data stored, they'll be called Run 1, Run 2, etc. You can go over to this File Cabinet looking option and pull up previous ones. You can see now we've started Run 2, and it's collecting data for that. I'll go ahead and collect data here. My motion sensor is pointed at nothing in particular, so this will flatline. So now I have data on that, but if I go back up here and select in this box next to that, I can now pick from Run 1 or Run 2. Let's go back to Run 1. All right. I think that's about all for the graphing menu. Strike through data and restore data will work on individually as you need it. The only other option of note is auto scale, zoom in, zoom out. Zoom in and zoom out, you can probably predict what they do. Auto scale is a very nice feature this has. Usually it does it right after the data is collected, so you will not have to go back to it too often. But auto scale will automatically make the graph look as big and full as possible. A very good option. One last thing to look at is controlling the graphs directly simply by clicking on them. So you'll notice that the y-axes are labeled for both of these. If you click on that label, you can actually choose what variable you want plotted on the y-axis. Here we've already got position, but if I want velocity data plotted there, a simple click will get it. Or if I want to look at acceleration data. Now, note that acceleration data is pretty wild and all over the place. The reason for that is that the motion detector really only senses position. It will collect that over time, and then it will calculate the velocity and the acceleration for you. But the further out you take those calculations, the more erratic your data gets. So the acceleration graph on this usually looks pretty rough. I'm going to set this back to position. All right, with that, you should be able to play around with these graphs and hopefully get whatever you need done.